Just a quick note, the full video for this run is going to be linked in the description as well as Lucid's channel, so if you haven't subscribed to him already, you should go ahead and do so. Alright, so what inspired me to do this run was I was going through Lucid's channel and looking through some of his older videos, and in one of those videos he did two different challenge runs, one with Nero using only Devil Breakers and one with Dante using only Rebellion and Ebony and Ivory. But for this one I was only focused on the one with Dante. And in that run, he used Rebellion and Ebony and Ivory, but he also allowed himself to use Sin Devil Trigger, just not any moves that require Devil Sword Dante. So I wanted to try this run for myself, but I wanted to add two extra conditions for it. One of them was not using Sin Devil Trigger at all, but just so I wasn't tempted, I started a fresh save, completed the main campaign with Virgil, and that way I can unlock the Bloody Palace while ever unlocking Sin Devil Trigger for Dante. The second condition was to only use Gunslinger and Swordmaster since I only had two weapons to use. That meant no Trickster and no Royal Guard. Yep, I know, crazy. I hate myself that much. Now, I did fail this challenge the first few times because I had such a limited moveset, and the only way I could avoid damage was by side rolling or just jumping out of the way, or by parrying, which I had to learn to get better at. And also learned a new trick was how to juggle enemies in the air by just enemy stepping in using Hailstorm using Ebony and Ivory. I mean, that's pretty fun. I mean, just look at that. Just keep them in the air for as long as you can. Goliath was pretty easy to deal with since his attacks are slow and he's big enough where you can just enemy step above him and behind him just to avoid any damage he tries to throw at you. I pretty much did the same thing with Artemis. I just had to watch out for her little drone things since they can throw you off while you're attacking her. As for her dash attack, I was able to easily cancel it out by using Stinger in Devil Trigger form, so she was no big deal. After stage 40 is where things start to get a little tricky because the game spawns in more heavy enemies such as the Behemoth and Proto-Angelo. As for the Proto-Angelo, I usually try to deal with him by keeping him airborne as long as possible, because in the air he can't counter you like he does on the ground, so it's really helpful to keep him suspended as long as you can. Now, Cavalier Angelo was pretty easy to deal with since his moveset is pretty easy to learn and you can pretty much parry most of his attacks, except I couldn't block any of his projectile attacks since I wasn't using Royal Guard for this run, but other than that he pretty much gave me no problem. Now for Malphus, I had to use Stinger a bunch of times to get to her since I couldn't use the Trickster teleportation or anything like that. The only thing that really gave me trouble was her magic attacks, such as her little ground spikes she summons and the magical air spikes that she shoots at you from above. And speaking of trouble, I started struggling a lot more past stage 80, considering I only had one sword and two low damage pistols to defend myself. And it's coupled with the fact that enemies can now use Devil Trigger against me, which means I do even less damage with the two weapons that I have. And while I'm on the subject of Devil Trigger, it seems to me that the Riots use Devil Trigger faster than any other enemy out there. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but to me it seemed that they started activating theirs a lot quicker than any other enemies I fought. Now when I was fighting King Cerberus, I tried to attack his heads that weren't active to try to interrupt his attack pattern to get him stun locked. But looking back on that now, I realized it probably wasn't worth the effort, purely because I wasn't just dealing that much damage to him. And it probably wasn't the best way to do it because that fight almost took 7 minutes, which didn't get better with the other bosses in the Bloody Palace because it just got worse from there. And when I say worse, I'm mostly talking about Urizen's second boss fight because, oh my god, this boss fight just pissed me off to no end because I spent a majority of it just trying to destroy his stupid crystal or shield, whatever. And I just had to, I get frustrated just talking about it. I mean, because look at this, I'm just having to constantly dodge attacks and blast and his stupid meteor thing. And yeah, I'm basically dealing no damage the entire time. And if I am, it's just absolutely minuscule compared to what he outputs in damage. So yeah, this fight took forever. And pretty sure it took a few years off my life just dealing with it. And this wasn't even the worst fight. The worst fight was Virgil, which took forever. But before I move on to Virgil, I just have to say that fighting Urizen on stage 100 was practically a breath of fresh air compared to his previous fight, because all I had to do was just enemy step and stay above him pretty much the whole time. I barely struggled with him, like barely. Like compared to the last stage, like I'd rather fight stage 100 more times than deal with stage 99 with that challenge. Now, when it came to Virgil's fight, I decided to just attack him head on, mostly because I didn't feel like waiting for his summoned swords so I could try to parry them. And by attacking him head on, I usually can get him to where I need him to be, which just makes it easier for a counter attack. Because whenever you try to attack him and he parries you, he usually teleports next to you, which leads to a easier follow-up attack as you see here. But after he started using his devil trigger, I tried to avoid him as best as possible, or I tried to parry some of his forward dash attacks as best as I could, because I didn't want to risk running into one of his attacks and just absolutely getting destroyed by it. Once he summoned in his doppelganger, I had to be extremely careful in order to not die, because if just one of those attacks hit me, then that means Virgil can easily finish me off, which is what happened to me one time on a different run, which made me very upset to say the least. But yeah, for this I was just being extremely cautious, just avoiding his attacks the whole time, just trying to whittle down the doppelganger's health little by little, because if I try to attack it head on, then more than likely I'll get hit by either one or both of them. And I wasn't really too concerned about time, because I had over 40 minutes to spare on the last end of it. And towards the end of the fight, he started blocking a lot, but I was easily able to break it with a DT Stinger, and I was eventually able to kill him with just Ebony and Ivory, and finish with a whopping playtime of 13 minutes and 20 seconds. And that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed watching. Like I said, the full video for this run is in the description, as well as Lucid's channel, which is who inspired me to do this, so make sure you go check him out, subscribe to him and all of that. But yeah, other than that, I guess I'll see you in the next one.